Well, hey, Cascade Church, welcome to another Wednesday's Word. My name's Tim, I'm the pastor here, and here's what we've been reading as we've kept up with the Bible this past week. Just finished the book of Hebrews yesterday, started the book of James. James is one of those controversial books. Martin Luther didn't like it. He called it an epistle of straw because his big turnaround, as we preached about a few weeks ago if you come to our Sunday services, is that righteousness is by faith alone. We're not saved by our works. Luther was a man who worked so hard trying to earn his salvation, crawling upstairs, fasting, confessing for 6 hours a day, just could not find righteousness in himself. And finally, the light in his tower experience was that a righteousness is a gift of faith. Faith alone, we are saved by grace. And then he picks up James and reads that faith without works is dead. And so how do we reconcile this? And the way I heard about this, the best example from seminary, it still sticks with me, is imagine two people fighting different enemies so they're standing back to back. So James and Paul are not in a duel debating it's faith alone without works, and then James is saying no, it's faith and works, and they're shooting at each other. Instead, they're shooting at different people. So Paul is arguing against people who are trying to add works to grace. In the book of Galatians, people are saying you have to keep kosher, you have to be circumcised, you have to do all these good things, and if you do that, only then can you be saved. And Paul's saying, no, we are saved by grace through faith alone. It's not by works, or no one can be righteous. But James is writing to a very different crowd. He's writing to Jews who have been scattered around because of persecution. They're living all over the Roman Empire now, and they're tired of working. They've given up their good works. They're insular. They've stopped taking care of the poor. They're just hunkered down, bunker mentality. We're not going to take care of anybody else. Let's just get through this and get to heaven. And James is telling them your faith is useless. Later in the book, what we're going to read is he'll say, if someone comes to you and you say, hey, be well fed, stay warm, and don't do a thing to help them, you're not doing the Christian thing. So James is saying your faith needs to manifest itself in works. He's never saying that our works are salvific. What he's saying is our faith, if it doesn't have works that show that we have faith, it's dead. I don't think Paul would disagree. That's why he thanks the Philippians for supporting him in his weakness. He thanks the Galatians for being patient with him when his eyes were failing. He's taking offerings for the church in Jerusalem. So Paul also encourages Christians to do good things. He never says they're saved by them. James is encouraging people to do good things. He's not saying we're saved by them. He's just saying it's natural. If you have faith, it should turn into works. And for me, I love the grace alone through faith alone, and I don't like judging my works. Because if I look at my works, especially practical deeds of service, I fall short. I should be more generous. I should take care of the poor. There's a lot of shoulds around me, and it can be overwhelming. And James and Jesus would not try to overwhelm. James is probably Jesus' half-brother. The same Jesus who said, come to me, all you who are weary, take my yoke upon you. Jesus who said the poor would always be with us, that we should take care of them. And that same Jesus also said, when you saw someone in prison, when you saw someone sick, when you saw someone naked, and you didn't help them, you didn't help me. But when you did help them, when you did visit them, and care for them and take care of them and feed them, when you did it for the least of these, you did it for me. So if we take Paul and James and root it all back in Jesus, Jesus says, come to me, take my yoke upon you, but then take care of the poor. So all these things go together. So picture James and Paul back to back, fighting different enemies, defending the same gospel. This morning in Ezekiel, we're getting close to the end of Ezekiel, and I'm going to write in the email that goes out with this, or if you only see this online, it'll be on our website and on our Facebook. But Ezekiel sometimes gets awkward. Ezekiel starts talking about Israel in very graphic terms. Earlier, a few weeks ago, we saw that Israel was compared to a young girl who was left abandoned on the side of the road, covered in blood, right after the images that she was given birth to, and then just abandoned. And God picks her up, and God loves her and cleans her and feeds her. And then when she's old enough, he marries her and takes care of her, and then she rejects him. And now Jerusalem went through a civil war. Now there's two different nations, Judah and Samaria, or Israel. Their different capitals are Samaria and Jerusalem. And so he takes two twin sisters and compares the same sort of idolatries to them. And again, the terms get very graphic. This would be what on the online community calls not safe for work material. But in Ezekiel 36, he finally gets to some good news. He's been talking to this hard-hearted people. Their hearts are like rock. They're willing to take any other god other than the Lord, or any other god along with the Lord. And all this is idolatry. But today, in Ezekiel 36, we read, you can have a heart of stone, and the Lord will take it from you and give you a heart of flesh. And to me, that's the essence of the gospel. The gospel that we were talking about before is that we are spiritually dead. We can't save ourselves, we can't fix ourselves, we can't heal ourselves. A dead person can only do one thing, and that's decompose. It's like in the old Princess Bride movie. He's only mostly dead. If he was all the way dead, all he could do is go through his pockets for loose change. Spiritually, we're all the way dead. Just go through our pockets looking for loose change. There's nothing we can do, can't even contribute. God takes our dead, cold hearts and turns them into flesh. And the first thing that fleshly heart does is love God. It's a response that's just built into us. It's like taking someone who's been underwater and you pull them out. The first thing they do is gasp for breath. The new living heart God gives us, the first thing it does is beat and gasp and believe in God. That's the gift that we get in salvation. And Ezekiel, in the middle of all this darkness, in the middle of all that just profound depravity that we see of our own sins, it's not just Jerusalem and Judea. It's not just Israel and Samaria. It's me. I reject God. I find far more security and financial well-being. I find far more rejection when a loved one turns their back on me than I find assurance in God's provision and in His love for me. It is very easy to idolize the people and the stuff and the circumstances around us. And God would say to someone like me, your heart is mine. I've given you a new one. It'll beat after me. In Jeremiah, we read that He's going to write His law on our hearts so that we can be careful to obey Him. All this is the new covenant, the new promise that Jesus gives us. So don't let the bad news get you down. If you're feeling more like James is rebuking you, maybe take that rebuke in prayer and see where you can be more generous. We've got Thanksgiving coming up and Christmas. Church is supporting the Marysville Food Bank. You can give to that. You can give to the church. We'll take good care of your money. And sometimes it's not about the church wanting your money. It's about your money needing to be released so that you can learn that money is not your ultimate security. So maybe take James to heart and say, okay, is my faith without works and therefore dead? Does it need to have some life to it with some activity? But also remember that your heart is based on grace. The status of your heart isn't based on how much you give or how much you serve. It's based on who loves you and who served you in Jesus Christ. So in Him, have rest and have a great week. Talk to you soon.